Hey there, so I just got back from our private mastermind. We did one in Miami. This is for people doing at least $1 million a year. And there was a question brought up there that I think is super important for people to understand when it comes to scaling an e-commerce business with really any ad channel, but specifically kind of Facebook ads, going to an e-commerce sort of Shopify store with a direct marketing funnel. This is kind of some of the fundamentals of direct marketing. Now, obviously, this is a private mastermind, so I'm not going to give any of her details. I'm not even going to give the real numbers, but it doesn't matter. I'll give you an example with similar numbers that I've made up just to kind of prove the point. And I think this will really drive something home for you. Because, I mean, the question always people want to know, you start running ads, things start working. When can you actually scale your ads? How do you know if you're at the point where you can kind of unleash the floodgates? There's a few things you have to understand. I'm going to use a bunch of different acronyms here. I'll include them below the video if possible, but I'll say them out loud also, but it's just easier to write them with the acronyms. So the first thing you need to understand is the cost per acquisition. So say, for example, cost per acquisition is $45. What does this mean? This means you run a bunch of Facebook ads and every $45 or so, you're getting a sale. You spend $90, you got 2 sales and so forth. And maybe it goes up and down and whatnot, but if you look over a few days, if you look over a week, on average, you're getting a sale for every $45 you spend. So that's one number. That's what it's costing you now to get a new customer. Now, other thing is your average order value in the store. So let's say it's $60. So AOV, average order value, is $60. This means on average, when somebody buys from you, hopefully you have order bumps and upsells and all that, but regardless, they're spending $60 with you. Some people may spend more, some people may spend less, but the average cart value when people check out is $60. But that doesn't really tell you the full picture, because in this case, it looks like, okay, sweet, I spend $45, I make $60, life is good. But if you're selling physical products, which most of us are in e-commerce, there's going to be product costs. So you need to know your gross profit. So I'm just going to put profit, but this is not your bottom line profit. This is your gross profit. So what I'm typically looking at here are, hard product costs, packaging costs, shipping costs, also credit card processing fees, those things that are direct product costs. I'm not worried about employees or any of that sort of stuff, just the direct product cost for that sales. And ours actually is about 50%. So I'm going to use that. Some people may be higher, some people may be lower. So it's 50% in this case. On a $60 average order value, if the gross profit is 50%, that means we're left with $30. So this is how much profit we're making, regardless of employees and whatnot, but per unit that we sell or per order that we sell, we're getting $30. And so in this case, if you look at this, we're spending $45 to get a customer, but we're only making $30. You're like, oh man, I got to go back to the drawing board. I got to keep, ramping up my maybe click-through rate or driving those cost per click lower. I got to ramp up my conversion rate. The CPA, this cost per acquisition, is too expensive. Or maybe I need to get people to buy more stuff up front because I'm not making enough profit to cover my ad costs. The problem is, if you haven't done this before, you could be wrong. You could be able to scale to the moon with these numbers, even losing $15 on every upfront sale. What you need to know is your lifetime value, or LTV. This one I could just write out because we got plenty of room. Lifetime value or your LTV. Now, this means the total amount people spend with you over any given time period. Where people get confused with this is lifetime value really only makes sense to talk about in a cohort basis. Cohort means all the people who bought a certain period of time. And so the way that I typically look at this is I'll want to know something like our 3-month LTV, our 6-month LTV, and also 12-month LTV, and then in some cases even further out. So this means I would look at, for example, when I'm recording this right now, it's April of 2023. So maybe I'd want to look at all the people who bought in, say, December of last year. So they bought in December. What I want to know is just for those people who bought for the first time in December, how much did that group of people spend upfront is important, but also how much did they spend in January, February, March. That's going to give me an idea of, you could call it a 3 or 4 month LTV. In that case, I'd probably say 3 months. So I'd be looking at the money they spent up front, which was in December, and then January and February. So that's 3 full months. I want to see what their 3-month LTV is. That's going to tell me, if I look at all the stuff that they bought divided by the number of people, I'll be like, okay, cool. So some of these people that only spent, $60 up front, they came back and bought. So then maybe you may find out that in 3 months alone, this number has actually jumped up to, say 90 bucks, 90 bucks average order value. Now you're basically breaking even up front. Now you may find that you're not quite there yet, but after 6 months, maybe you have a $100 LTV. Maybe after 12 months, maybe it's $150 LTV. I mean, you don't know without looking at these numbers. Shopify now makes this easier and easier. There's also apps to calculate your lifetime value. So you want to see how much stuff are people buying. And the way that, like I said, I look at it is on a cohort basis. So I'll go back typically further. So I'd maybe look at everyone who bought in January of 2022, which is over a year ago. For everyone who bought in January of 2022, how much did they buy in the first 3 months? How much did they buy in the first 6 months? How much did they buy in the first 12 months? So that's one group. But maybe there was some weird anomaly in January. So then I'll look at the same numbers, but for people who bought the first time in February. Typically, it's pretty consistent. But I just want to make sure that these numbers are accurate. So then when I know how much people buy on average after 3 months, after 6 months, after 12 months, the only missing piece is to go back to this number, because 12-month lifetime value, if you're just looking at it on a revenue basis, doesn't tell you the full picture. You also need to know how much profit there is. So for example, if you have a, say $90 lifetime value after 3 months and you have a 50% profit, you're breaking even. And say that bumps up to like 120 bucks after 6 months, that means half of that, 50% of that, or 60 bucks is profit. That means you're making $15 on every one of these customers you get. This is why, without looking at it this way, you have no idea if this is a good idea or a bad idea. All you know for sure, which is important to know, is that you may be losing $15 in cash up front. Now, the way that we manage this at first in my own e-commerce business is, at first, we wanted to break even basically after 2 months. We looked at how much do people spend on average after about 2 months. That's what we were willing to spend to acquire a customer on a profit basis. Then now, because the business has grown a lot, we have a big subscription base, we're willing to go out a full year. We don't care if we lose money every single month on a new customer, as long as we're making money after a year. So we look at our 12-month lifetime value. Our gross profit is about 50%. So we take half of that, and that's what we're willing to spend to acquire a new customer up front. So we're spending a lot more than we're making up front to acquire a customer, but we know after a year, we break even and it's all money after that. It's all profit after that. So this is the best way to decide whether or not you're ready to scale your e-commerce ads. If these numbers look good to you, scale up more. See if this stays the same and doesn't start creeping up. If these numbers don't make sense, they don't back out to you, then you're gonna have to do some work, either driving up your average order value, possibly increasing your profit, or possibly driving down your cost per acquisition, or increasing your lifetime value, which could mean going back and doing better retargeting, doing better email marketing, getting people to come, or maybe even having some products that people want to come back and buy more than they are now, so you can increase your lifetime value and you can afford to spend more to acquire a customer up front. So hopefully this is valuable to you.